Hi everyone, I'm Nima. Today I will do a program, and this week's program is about blaming others. Do you know why do people blame others? Let's move on. What is blaming others? What is an example of blaming?
Blaming others is defined as attributing a personal failure to another human or an event. In other words, it is escaping responsibility. It is the inability to hold yourself accountable for what you're responsible for. Taking this to another level, in psychology, this is what we call a social comparison, that is a status seeking. For example, when you blame someone else for something that you've done, what you're doing is that you're unconsciously putting yourself in a superior seat that might entail many consequences, just because you wanted to feel more important, or you wanted to feel that you are the good person as opposed to the bad person.
What do you call a person who blames others for their mistake?
Now you might be wondering, what do we call a person who blames others for their own mistakes? Now there are many titles that could fit into this category. One of them is what we call a blame artist, or what is more relevant to this concept is a scapegoater or blame shifter. Those two words are defined as a person who transfers blame to others or groups that are not necessarily guilty, just in order to take attention away, just in order to focus attention away from those who are actually responsible, and sometimes from themselves as well.
Why do kids blame others?
There is something fundamental we need to understand about this, because we're dealing with kids. Now, all humans, regardless of their age, when distressed, they turn into what we call a mode of fight or flight. That is, they lash out at whoever is closest to them. So let's take an example. Let's say that your child, let's say your daughter, steps on a toy and it hurts. So she is plunged into distress, and thus she goes into the fight mode and immediately would lash at whoever is closest to her. But at this moment, this is not actually because she wants to make everyone feel as bad as she does. At that moment, actually, she is not considering others. She's actually not thinking straight, and she definitely doesn't have any access to empathy, because at that moment, what she is thinking of is either fear or blame. So she lashes out because she can't bear the feeling of hurt, the feeling of pain, the feeling of fear, maybe because of the parents. So she tends to get immediately angry, and this is an automatic response from her. So what she or the child is seeing at this moment is nothing but a good offense as a response to get away from or escape her feelings of pain and fear.
What is blame personality?
You might be thinking of a different question. How do I know a person is a blamer or not? Now first, they always play the victim role, and that would lead to a different personality trait, that they become liars most of the time, because to play a victim, you need to somehow create a certain type of story that might go with how you can victimize yourself. And if the case is developed, and this happens mostly with adults, is that they create a narcissist nature of themselves, because they don't want to feel that they are hurting. They want to face, they don't want to encounter what they are feeling at that moment. So they want to blame others, and that is a narcissistic trait of those who are who are entitled as blamers.
What does blame shifting mean?
So now having mentioned blame shifting and blame shifters, so you might be wondering what blame shifting is. So blame shifting is when a person does something wrong or inappropriate and then dumps them onto someone else to avoid feeling responsibility for their own behavior. It's like you are camouflaging the facts, and this is what we mean by not taking responsibility for your own behavior.
How can we stop blaming others?
We need to understand something at the beginning, that children do not have as much ability to self-regulate as adults do. And this is because their prefrontal cortex is still developing. So there are 4 steps you need to take when you deal with your child who is constantly blaming others for things that he or she is committing. Number 1, you need to stay calm. Because to your child, after committing a certain action or a certain wrongdoing, this is an emergency to them. So your calm attitude will communicate the idea that there is no emergency, and thus there is no need for them to lash out at whoever is closest to them. And as a result of this, they don't have to turn into this fighting switch. So the second point is to empathize. That is, whether it's your child's feet or heart, it hurts. Acknowledging that at first will just help them feel more understood and less alone. And as a result of this, less like it's an emergency. So what you need to do is to bypass their anger and respond to their fear or disappointment or hurt by that is actually driving the anger itself, and that will just help them understand themselves and their emotions more and more clearly. Number 3 is do not attack back, because to your child, attacking is a way of dumping their pain elsewhere, and this is a way of not dealing with what they have to feel or what they are responsible for. So going back to the example we gave where the daughter steps on a toy, what you need to do at that specific moment when you see your child blaming her siblings or blaming you, saying it's your fault for what happened, what you need to do at that specific moment is to shift their attention away from the blaming act into how they feel about the hurt itself. So you might go with saying that, oh, I feel, oh, you sweetie, for example, sweetie, you're okay, is your feet okay? Let me see if something is wrong with your feet. So you take the attention, you shift the attention away from blaming what happened on someone else into how they feel about what happened. Number 4 is teach repair. When your daughter or your child is no longer in pain, no longer suffering from what just happened, you might get close to them and calmly start saying, well, that must have hurt you a lot. I know you, I can see why you were upset, but blaming your brother for what has been done is not a good way of dealing with your brother. It's your brother and he loves you and would never want to hurt you. So now I wonder how you can make things better with your brother now. So this last question of making things better with your brother or any other sibling is actually giving your child a responsibility task. So the next time when they encounter such incidents, they would immediately go and try to mend things rather than just blaming and lashing out at whoever is the closest to them.
Are parents to blame child's behavior?
As a parent, you might be thinking, well, is it my fault that my child is always blaming others for their own mistakes? Well, we need to understand that our children is a reflection of what they see at home, is a reflection of what they see their parents do all the time, and maybe their mentors or teachers outside. So if this is not the case, if the case is that they acquired this act of blaming others from an outside context All you need to do is just go through the 4 steps of how to stop a child from blaming others at the beginning or at the very first instance when you see them blaming others for this. So dealing with this at first will just save yourself the time, save yourself the headache, save your child from creating a narcissistic personality.
Is blame an emotion?
Last but not least, is blaming others an emotion? Well, psychologically speaking, it's not an emotion, it is a defense mechanism. This is what we call projection. When someone feels that their ego is threatened, when someone feels that they cannot bear the pain, the sufferings, the disappointment, the sadness, and maybe the fear of their parents or the teachers or the mentors, they tend to project those emotions onto something else or someone else in order to not encounter it, in order to not face it themselves, and that will just create a safe zone for their mentality. But in the long run, this is not healthy, and we as parents, mentors, or teachers need to deal with this once we see incidents of students or children blaming others for mistakes we think they have committed themselves.
I hope nobody in this world blames each other. I hope you always be happy. Bye!